Natural Born Killers was the subject of one of my earlier reviews. Oliver Stone presented a film so heavily edited and varied in camera use that it was second to none in that regard. Now I know Stone wanted to give his opinion of the media's influence on the 90s society, but I didn't realize just how big of an influence he had taken from the 1967 movie Bonnie and Clyde. This is a movie that has become legendary over the years. Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway play Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker, two young adults who fell in love while going on a crime spree that shocked the nation. They are accompanied by Clyde's brother, Buck, played by Gene Hackman, Buck's wife, Blanche, played by Estella Parsons, and C.W. Moss, played by Michael J. Pollard. Bonnie and Clyde are both hopeless characters who need each other, but it doesn't really start out that way. Bonnie's attracted to Clyde's attitude, his perfect grin, and the feel of danger that's always following him around. As was once discussed on QI, this condition is called hybristophilia, but is now also called the Bonnie and Clyde syndrome. The guns and violence that the characters indulge in are paradoxically as much to heal them as they're meant to hurt others. The obviously phallic symbol of a gun is heavily used by Clyde to compensate for his impotence. Meanwhile, Bonnie is attracted to the danger and thrill of crime, and so Clyde Barrow seems like the perfect guy. The movie's style was inspired by the new wave directors from France. The editing is rapid for the time, the tone goes from serious to comedic at the drop of a hat, and the bad guys are immortalized. This movie truly set a trend for others to follow. This is a very strange film. Obviously, it's not historically accurate, and the tone of the film truly suggests a light-hearted look at a romantic couple that just happened to be killers. While Natural Born Killers was a clear satire pointing an accusing finger at society, and while Badlands was a slightly whimsical yet very solemn look at the hopelessness of two young people, Bonnie and Clyde feels like the middle ground between those two movies. But in my opinion, it also feels like if the real Bonnie Parker wrote the screenplay. According to some historians, Bonnie was just lost in the illusions of her seemingly poetic love with Clyde, who she may have even seen as a gallant man. The movie captures the essential myth of Bonnie and Clyde, showing us the idealized story that people believed in to idolize these two criminals. On a surprising note, almost everyone in the main cast was Oscar nominated the year the movie came out. It was nominated for Best Picture, but ultimately lost to this film. And I've already discussed this one, so we'll leave it at that. Warren Beatty, who would later go on to give two other legendary performances in both Bugsy and Dick Tracy, serves as a great leading man in this film, except that I found it a bit strange that he seemed to have a permanent smile on his face a third of the time. Kind of plays into my earlier theory of the film's atmosphere, I guess. Now, I'm aware that the real Clyde Barrow wasn't nearly as handsome, as gallant, or as articulate as Beatty's performance made him out to be, but then again, Faye Dunaway was always a much more attractive woman than Bonnie Parker ever was. The rest of the cast do a good job, and we even get to see the film debut of Gene Wilder. Overall, Bonnie and Clyde earns its status as a classic movie. Granted, it borders on silly with a very country-style chase music to match with some of the bank robbery scenes, but this blurring of genres led to many films following in its footsteps. I should also remark that the violence is still enough to warrant some younger viewers to not watch the film, but it does pale in comparison to the violence in movies today. Basically, follow the age restrictions of the film and be prepared to see one of the classics that helped reinvent the ways you could show criminals on screen. Bonnie and Clyde was controversial for its romanticizing crime and glorifying a group of very inglorious characters. But the movie is smart enough to know that people like this can't escape retribution for too long, no matter how lost in delusion they are.
Deep night, stars in the sky above, moonlight lighting our place of love.